Okay, I have a big old dumb grin on my face. Any other Sloan fans in the room? Just put up your hand just to make you feel good. Wasn't that great? And it's literally the core of what I'm trying to talk about today. We've been in this kind of little mini-series. Just again, thank you guys. That was a blast. We're in this series I'm calling Peacemakers. Why is it that some people create peace around them and some seem to do the opposite? And more than that, I want to find out how peace is created. I want to learn those skills. Now, Yannick was telling me about the mayor of Jasper. Has anyone heard the interview with him? They just released the video of it. At one point, he's looking at his house. It's just rubble. And a reporter who's doing their job, I know it seems like they're kind of a-holes here, but they're doing their job to say, like, what are you feeling right now? And the guy takes a few moments and says, somewhere in that rubble is a picture of me as a kid, 2 years old, with a big old grin on my face. That's gone. And if you look around here, all of us have lost something. What a response. When we had a house fire and the reporter came to me and said, do you have a comment? I maybe didn't respond quite as peacefully. Mine was, read the room, get the F out of my face. I don't want to talk to you. I never want to talk to you. You're a horrible human being. How is it that some people can take a moment like that and create incredible peace? How is it that we, in those moments, when we flipped our lid or we're stuck in something, we do the very opposite? We have this model that we've been using to talk about our spiritual journey. It's this picture of circles. It's this idea that says our spirituality is based on this image. Esmond, can you throw up that image when you get a second? There's this idea of awareness, but see right at the bottom where it says I and them? I should really have an against right in the middle there. I against them. When I'm in this space with my wife, it's, oh, you want that? Well, if you get that, I'm not going to get what I want. And so we're framing it as I'm against her. She wins, I lose. I win, she loses. It's a fight to survive. Now, for those of you who maybe have people-pleasing tendencies, you're doing something similar. You see, in your mind, the I and the them are antagonistic to each other. I can't be fully who I am, or they won't like me, they won't love me. And so what we do is the battle is not against them, the battle is against I, and we start to suppress ourselves, become someone other than ourselves, so that we can experience the love we want. It's I against I, because them doesn't like I. Now what peacemakers seem to do, see, I'm waving my fingers and magically. They're not doing it magically. There's ways they do this. They're taking it, throw it up once more, Esmond. They're driving us up the model. It starts with the I against them, that mayor sitting them going, you seriously are asking me what I'm feeling as I'm looking at the rubble of my frickin' house? And what the mayor does is he pushes it upwards. We are dealing with this. That's what peacemakers do. They somehow drive us up. Maybe not drive, inspire us, motivate us, seduce us into a space where we feel connected. We're working together. Now, last week, I started talking about peacemakers. One of the skills of a peacemaker is they own their stuff, their crap. They're not blaming. You came and asked me this when I'm looking at the rubble of my house, you selfish SOB. Doesn't even go there. It seems that one of the skills of a peacemaker is somebody who goes, no, I understand. They are doing other things that aren't great. But what's my part? What part am I doing to create war here instead of peace? That's beautiful. But I learned another skill of a peacemaker. I learned it actually at a dinner party recently. I was out with some friends, great company, incredible food, like insanely good food. And we're having a conversation. I don't even know how it came up, but the one young lady says, kind of matter-of-factly, she said, I recently got out of a 5-year relationship, 5-year abusive relationship. And I don't hate the abuser. I don't hate my ex. Now, she had been away from them for a couple years and done a lot of work. But as I heard that, I remember my first reaction was like, okay, what did I just hear? Sorry, back up. You were in an abusive relationship. Yes. Physically, emotionally, sexually abusive. Yes. And you don't hate that person. No. Inside, I am livid. Like, let's go string this a-hole up. And here's the thing that blew me away. She wasn't there. She was in this beautiful state of peace, not ignoring that it happened, not belittling it. She honored that what he did was wrong. She had to get away. It took her 5 years to finally leave. It was very complex, her issues, family issues. He'd become family. But she was able to leave, and she was able to talk about this incredible situation with such peace. I was totally dysregulated. Why don't you hate him? Why don't you see him for what he is? This guy is a villain. He's an asshole. Pardon my French, sorry. Why? Why aren't you feeling what I'm feeling? You went through it. This should be only more for you. I think there's something in her that understood something about peacemaking that I don't think I understood. I think she embodied something that I think there's a story from Jesus that's embodied in the story of Jesus. Not the original way we tell it. It's actually the story of the Good Samaritan. Has anyone heard this story? Does anyone know, when I say Good Samaritan, have you ever heard that phrase? Good Samaritan? Fairly common, right? The story is this. A Jewish man is he's going for a walk from one town to another town. He gets mugged. 2 of his countrymen walk by and ignore him. One of them is a religious person, right? Completely ignores the guy. He's beaten on the side of the road, like bloody, can't even walk, and they're just like, yo, okay. And then a Samaritan walks up, sees him, and is like, whoa, grabs him, patches him up, puts him on his donkey, takes him to care. The moral of the story is, be like the Samaritan. Samaritans are good, right? If I say Samaritan's Purse, you're thinking aid organization, not terrorist organization, right? Because that word Samaritan means good. Somebody who will stop and help. If you're stranded on the side of the road and someone stops, we'll call them, oh, a good Samaritan came and showed up. We even have a rule called a Good Samaritan rule, or law. Here's the problem. That's not a good understanding of this story. Now, Good Samaritan has influenced and inspired Friend Church. We have a value that says we value an action-oriented spirituality. We value a spirituality that sees a person on the side of the road and stops. We value a person who says, Jasper needs my help. Me and my team are going to drive up to Jasper and help. Action-oriented spirituality. It's water, right? This thing flows up in us, this well of spirituality, and it flows out of us and makes the world a better place. That's the reading of a Good Samaritan. Here's the problem. That's not the story. My religious training is in a field of study called hermeneutics. It's basically how you go from text to meaning. How you read a text and say, well, what does it mean? And there's a bunch of different ways, I call them questions you can ask the text and get a different meaning. So the original text looks like this. Can you throw it up for me, Esmond? There's one about a Samaritan. There's going to be 3 of them. Then a Samaritan came along, and when he saw the man, he felt compassion for him. That's actually how it's written. Now, in our heads, when we think in terms of a modern-day hermeneutic, we ask the question, what does Samaritan mean to me? We translate something closer to this. Can you throw up the next one for me? Then the Good Samaritan. See, it's in square brackets. It means it's not in the text. It means we added it. We're assuming the text means the Good Samaritan, the person who would stop. Because of course he would stop. They're a Samaritan. That's what Samaritans do. Duh. And Jesus says, be like a Samaritan. No wonder, they're good. They take water. That's what they do. Here's the problem. That word Samaritan does not mean good. Here's a better translation. Can you put the last one for me, Esmond? Then a man from the despised Samaritans. Some of the newer translations actually say despicable Samaritans. You see, Samaritans were enemies of the Jews. The Jews hated them, even Jesus. I don't want to tarnish your view of Jesus, but he's super racist at some parts towards Samaritans. He doesn't seem to like them. He calls one lady a dog because she's a Samaritan. Not a good look, Jesus. Let's just skip that story, shall we? The Samaritans were people who undermined the Jewish religion, undermined their ability to reconsolidate and build their own homes. The Jews looked at the Samaritans as enemies, as people who were constantly trying to beat them down. Suddenly, the Good Samaritan story takes on a different flavor, doesn't it? A modern-day scholar, there's a scholar named Amy Jill Levine. She's Jewish, but she studies New Testament. Bit weird, but whatever. Wicked insightful. If you want to read the Jewish translation of the New Testament, fantastic translation. She's one of the main people who translates. She says a modern-day retelling of the story of the Good Samaritan, again, now you know it's not good, probably would look closer to this. Can you throw up that section for me, Esmond? The first person to walk past the beaten man would have been a member of the Israel Defense Force who walks by without stopping. And the second person, a part of the Christian peace witness, again, without stopping. The Samaritan is equivalent to a member of Hamas who stops and helps the man. Now, she wrote this before October 7th, but it's only more sober, isn't it? The story of the Samaritan is not a story of a good person who does good things because that's who they are. The story in what's called a reader response criticism, it's when you look at how the original readers would have heard this story, they would have heard that. Then a member of Hamas stopped and helped the man. That's sobering. But here's the piece that's so Jesus. I don't know how else to say it. Jesus says, will you learn from a Samaritan? Will you see something of value inside of a Samaritan? Will you see the humanity? In our case, will you see the human who is part of Hamas? Will you see humanity in them? That's a bit more difficult, isn't it? The Good Samaritan being good because he's a Samaritan. Much easier reading of the story. calling us to see the good in everyone. Now you know why the Sloan song is so important to me. Could you see the good in everyone? I think that's what that girl at the dinner party could see. Now, our modern day thinking is, it's called a thinking error. If you do something wrong, you are bad. Easy, right? We cancel you. You use the wrong pronoun for that person, therefore you're a bad person. Canceled. You said you're part of the wrong ideology. You voted for the wrong person. You fill in whatever blank. You have the wrong kind of relationship. You like the wrong kind of people. You're bad. The nuance on social media is zero. You misstep, you are a villain. You are a Samaritan. There is nothing good in you. And yet Jesus says, wait. Sure, there's parts of us that aren't great. But can you see the good? Can you see underneath the crap? When I'm angry at my wife, when I'm my lid's flipped, remember this? I'm using words like, you never, you always, right? Instead of seeing, you made a mistake that made me upset, I'm creating this whole thing of like, you are that. That's all you are. You're a person who does this that hurts my feelings. It's not just social media. It's our brains, isn't it? Can we look underneath that? There's a story that Jesus would have grown up with, the creation myth. Whether or not it happened or not, who cares? There's a truth, a psychological truth, I think. This whole series of creation events happens, and the redactor, the one who compiled these stories from what looks like oral tradition, comes to this last line and says, then the Creator created humans in the image of God. Now, scholars have rightly pointed out, and probably the latest one is Jordan Peterson, to say, hey, that idea of there's a spark of something good inside of each of us undermines our entire legal code. You can't just be like, hey, you stole from your friend, I'm going to kill you. You did something bad over here, so I'm just going to kill you. No. Every person, every individual has some value. There's good in everyone. We assume that into the basis of our legal system. That's something I haven't totally figured out in my personal life. But I think that's what Jesus is calling us to. And I think that's what the girl at the dinner party could see. I was stuck on, he abused you, let's kill him. She said, yeah, he did abuse me. And I needed to get away from that. And I still need to be away from that. But he was a human, doing his very best to play a seriously difficult hand of cards. He was raised in a culture that taught him to treat women in a certain way. He, like me, had demons, past traumas that he was living out with us. We were so young, 18 to like 23. She saw the good in him when I couldn't. I came away from that dinner party first with a full belly. But with the awareness of this I against them that shifted. No longer could I villainize somebody. No longer could I just see some behavior and say, garbage. Just so you know, my personality loves to do that. My wife, God bless her, she knows this. But suddenly I could feel myself calling someone a name, and my brain's going, wait a second, there, Clausen. Are you seeing the good in them? Can you see the good in the human that's angry at you? Can you see a good in the human that's flipped their lid and is just blaming and spewing all this crap at you? Can you go, I see you. Underneath everything, you're still a human. And there's a spark of the divine in there that I can see. I may have to step away from your behavior, but I see the good in you. That's a hard one, isn't it? Especially the closer the relationship gets to home, our family. Parents doing that thing that they always do to us that drives us frickin'. But I see. I remember the moment when, it kind of sounds silly, but we've all had these moments. I realized that my parents were humans. Anyone remember that moment? You're like, wait a second. In my brain, parent means perfect. But you're a human just like me. With demons just like me. With good days and bad days just like me. I see the good in you. Can you see the good in the people who vote differently than you? Who are ideologically seeing, this is the way you solve problems in the world, and you're going, no, that is exactly the opposite way of solving problems in the world. Can you see underneath that difference and say, I still see a human. I see the good in you. I see you trying. Sure, your answer is completely wrong. I have a buddy, whenever we argue, he loves to say, okay, but Vince, you're wrong. So shout out to Corey right there, buddy. But I see the humanity in you. I see a spark of the divine in you. How would you move through your life with this Good Samaritan story framed differently? Can you see the good in the Hamas fighter? Can you see the good in the person who cuts you off? Can you see the good in the person that doesn't invite you to the party? Can you see the good in everyone? I want to make it way more about me. I'm upset. You hurt me. You made me angry. I don't want to see the good in you. You're the villain. It's much easier if I can say you're the villain. I don't need to pay attention to you. You're dead to me. Can you feel that move inside? Oh, you're that, therefore. What would it look like to walk through your life, even in the situations where people have done horrible things, and be able to see the good underneath? Can you see how she's pushing us up that model? Instead of saying I against they, keep it up for a little bit, Esmond. She's saying, no, there's a common we. Two humans trying their best to navigate the hand they were dealt. We do it by seeing the good, seeing the humanity. I think only spirituality has enough power in my life to do this. My brain very quickly wants to shift it. But spirituality says, no, Vince, the water you can take today is to do the hard work of seeing underneath all the pain, all the suffering, all the blame, all the things that are coming my way, and see a human. See a spark of the divine, something good, and respond to that. I want to say thank you to that girl. She called me out in the most beautiful way. By living in a way that I went, that's how I want to live my life. I hope she did the same for you today. May we leave here doing the profoundly difficult work, the spiritual work of seeing the good in everyone. Amen. I'm a little early today. It's nice. I'm going to have Yannick turn on some music, nice and quiet. We're not going to tear down the stage. Hang out as long as you want. Sit with the message for a little bit if you need to. If you need to jet, that's fine. Get an extra 50 minutes to go grab a coffee. But sit with this question of, what would this look like in my life? See you next week, everyone. Thanks.